With ironclad evidence of wrongdoing by the president, his Republican allies are left with no defense. So they've turned to street theater, anything to not deal with the facts. And the facts are damning. A little later in the show, I'll walk through the very clear, very simple case against the president. For all the sound and fury from the president's defenders, the case that Trump traded his public trust for personal political gain is remarkably pure. Republican frustration, however, was evident in yesterday's made-for-TV spectacle as a group of House Republicans, led by Trump loyalists, protested the investigation by storming the secure room where a deputy defense secretary was scheduled to testify. The New York Times editorial board put it bluntly: they're running out of options. The Times reports on the effort to grind proceedings to a halt. Quote, Republicans are growing increasingly uneasy about the inquiry and fretting that it could get much more worse for them. Well, that unease was evident again today as Senator Lindsey Graham introduced a Senate resolution co-sponsored by Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to condemn the House impeachment inquiry.
What's happened is that the attempt to open up an inquiry of impeachment against President Trump failed miserably. So they've created a new process that I think is very dangerous for the country.
Well, the majority of Senate Republicans now, 46, have gotten into the line. They have co-sponsored the resolution, but notably, 7 have not. Look at those. Those are the holdouts. They may end up being the profiles encouraged. We don't know, but those are starting with Lamar Alexander and across the room there, Senator Collins and the rest of them. That group has not signed on to this effort to basically short-circuit the whole process. The Associated Press reports that White House officials who have been treating unified Republican support for Trump as a given have grown increasingly fearful of GOP defections in a House impeachment vote and a potential Senate trial itself. It adds, the West Wing believes more must be done to shore up Republican support to avoid embarrassment and genuine political peril. Well, yesterday, the number 2 House Republican, Steve Scalise, complained about the process.
This is a process that we've been highly critical of, the fact that it's closed to the public, the fact that members of Congress that aren't on the relevant committees don't even have access to the transcripts of the hearings. Maybe they do that in the Soviet Union, but that's not acceptable in the United States of America.
Well, I don't think the Soviet Union had 4 dozen. There they are, 4 dozen Republicans in those hearings, anyway, in those secret hearings in the bottom of the Capitol these last several days. But while members who aren't on the relevant committees don't have access to testimony, 47, as I said, almost 4 dozen House Republicans do have access through their membership on those 3 committees leading the inquiry: Oversight Committee, Foreign Affairs, and Intelligence. That means nearly 1/4 of the House Republicans are already in there, able to attend those depositions. The Republican escalation in complaints, however, about the inquiry comes just days after President Trump issued a call for Republicans to get tougher. And their effort with yesterday's stunt wasn't lost on President Trump. In a tweet this morning, he thanked House Republicans for being tough, smart, and understanding in detail the greatest witch hunt in American history. For more, I'm joined by Jill Colvin, White House reporter for the Associated Press, Jason Johnson, politics editor at TheRoot.com, and David Frum, senior editor at The Atlantic. David, give us a sense of the Republicans. I mean, coming up with even, 7 holdouts is pretty dramatic in this environment.
Look, what's going on right now are team-building exercises. I hope you've never had the experience of being on a losing team. But when your team is facing a big deficit in strength and power.
I've been rooting for the Philadelphia Phillies for all my life, so I'm somewhat familiar with this thing.
So you dump Gatorade on each other's heads. You say whoop, whoop, whoop. You get everybody excited because the other guys are bigger and stronger and faster and meaner than you. And that is the situation that Republicans find themselves in. They had 48 hours ago, John Thune, the number 2 Republican in the Senate, saying, gee, I don't know about this. Friday, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, published an op-ed dissenting from the president's position on Syria. The ground is cracking, and so you need to mobilize people. If they had good arguments, they wouldn't use stupid ones. They use stupid ones because they don't have good ones. But you can substitute for a lot of sense with a lot of emotional excitement.
Can you change it seems to me they're doing harassment of the whole operation, but the old technique from Lee Atwater days back in the Reagan era was change the subject, not from who's right, who's wrong, but what side are you on, Joe? You change the subject. Are you a Republican? then get in line.
Well,
this isn't about guilt. It's about loyalty to the party.
That's a little bit of what you've seen the president doing over the last couple of days, where he sort of publicly said, Republicans, I need you behind me. You got to fight harder.
He's a big Republican now, Trump, by the way.
Absolutely. You got to stand behind me. He's been making that public cry. What you've seen this week is finally a recognition by the White House. Remember, a month ago, you had this White House saying, we don't need a war room. That would just be justifying this. This would be, suggesting that there was something that was a problem here. And now this week, you've seen a concerted effort by the White House to try to outreach to members. You had Mick Mulvaney this weekend at Camp David with members, trying to loop them in, trying to set up calls, trying to get everybody on board. Of course, they still have a very, very long way to go, and you've still got Trump allies outside the building who are very concerned about it.
Well, Jason, there's an old phrase, the dogs bark, but the caravan moves on. And there are a bunch of dogs barking at the caravan. I mean, the Democrats, it's not just a sports metaphor, which is usually what I usually do. I like sports metaphors, but here the goal has been made.
Yeah.
They've got the case.
Yeah.
The president traded his public trust for personal political gain. It's on the record. Mulvaney accepted. You got a transcript of it. I don't know how you can beat the drums all you want. You can bark all you want. That's done. So what are they doing? Are they delaying? Are they distracting? It seems like street theater yesterday.
It's a little bit of performance art, to use a sports metaphor. It's a rugby haka. They're up there, they're screaming, they're dancing around.
They're the All Blacks.
Exactly. Yeah. Because part of it is also to intimidate their colleagues and show that, look, we're willing to do anything. And part of this, I think, concerns and condolences. Nancy Pelosi, House Speaker, was out at a funeral yesterday. I don't think they would have tried this if Pelosi had been around. I think they would have been concerned about confronting some of Democratic leadership if they had tried to do something this ridiculous and this over the top. But I think this is about what's happening in that building. I think this is about scaring Democrats and letting them know we will make this as loud and ugly and ridiculous as possible, even as you guys move towards something that you clearly have made a case for.
Well, I think they have a case. Here's the argument, I would say. You go to a suburban Republican, here's your argument: national defense, national security. This president compromised that to get some dirt on Joe Biden.
Yeah, I mean, that's the argument. And you've seen, the Republicans trying to do the same thing, going to, moderate House seats where, districts where the president won in 2016 and a Democrat won in 2018, and saying, really, is this what you elected this person to do, to pursue impeachment? Don't you care about health care? Don't you want them to be talking about real issues that impact you? It's an argument that's going to be happening on both sides.
Well, during yesterday's mock sit-in, that was the dullest group of protesters I've ever seen. House Republicans complained the private nature of the proceedings is unfair.
This is a Soviet-style impeachment process.
The American people, as I said before, they understand fairness, and they instinctively know that what is happening here is not fair.
This is a process lacking legitimacy, credibility, and fairness.
By golly, if they're going to do it in public.
By golly. But many of these same Republicans had no problem with closed-door interviews when they were used, of course, during the Benghazi investigation. Remember that? Here's how the chairman of the Select Committee back then, former South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy, described it back in 2015.
I can just tell you that of the 50-some-odd interviews we have done thus far, the vast majority of them have been private, and you don't see the bickering among the members of Congress in private interviews. You don't see any of that. I can just tell you in the private interviews, there is never any of what you saw Thursday. It is 1 hour on the Republican side, 1 hour on the Democrat side, which is why you're going to see the next 24 interviews done privately. The private ones always produce better results.
There he is, Trey Gowdy, describing how you do a really good set of investigative hearings if you want the truth, if you don't want to show, And now he's saying, but that's tape.
And remember, that was going to be the president's outside lawyer. If there hadn't been these rules prohibiting from serving as a lobbyist, then he actually would have been a member of Trump's legal team, joining Rudy Giuliani.
Okay, let's go to the funniest guy in the world. And I can't bring myself to hate the guy. It's hard for me to hate anybody. But Lindsey Graham, with his tail wagging the last couple of days, he's been crawled into service. He has done it. So he's running around today in the United States Senate grabbing people. It's like, remember the card check thing with the labor unions? Oh, yeah. Card check. He's getting everybody to sign the card check. Everybody wants to condemn the House hearings now. Yeah. So he goes around, he's got, as the count, as we went on the air tonight, 46 members of the 53-person Republican caucus in the U.S. Senate, 6 holding out. Doesn't that make a little bit of a statement either way?
Yeah, no, this is one of those things you'd better have everybody sign before you take any of it public. Because, look, the game has never been about getting to 2/3 of the Senate. That's obviously not possible. Donald Trump is not going to be removed from office by a Senate vote, barring some,
I'm with you.
Barring some direct divine intervention on the minds of the Republican Senate caucus. But the question is, does Donald Trump get 54, 55 votes for removal? Where is Mitt Romney? Where is Lamar Alexander?
A majority vote.
Right.
And if Lindsey Graham gets to the end of this process and he's got 46 senators lined up, that's really alarming. And I don't know. To them.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's doing this. I mean, you have to have everybody there on the first day, or don't do it.
If you get 53 votes, majority vote, Jill, objectively, you have a House vote to impeach, which I think will be about 230. My guess, pretty strong vote, almost unanimous among Democrats, maybe some Republicans, and then a majority of the Republican-controlled Senate.
I mean, that's
a condemning statement.
It would be a striking blow to the president. And I think that's why you see them really trying to ramp up the effort. You had Lindsey Graham, had a conversation with Mick Mulvaney, the acting chief of staff, who, of course, has his own problems. This is all happening as the White House internally is in turmoil as usual. But even Lindsey Graham saying, look, guys, you got to really take this seriously. You need to bring some people on. You need
How come Lindsey's not as smart as David Frum? David Frum said you don't start a roll call until you know how it's going to end up.
Well, and Pelosi did that. I mean, essentially, that's what happened. Pelosi didn't finally say, all right, let's move ahead with impeachment until she knew she had the numbers, was going to look good. But here's the other thing that I think they're really frightened about. Even with all these private hidden hearings that no one else can hear, the numbers in favor of impeachment.
By the way, we got the guy's opening statement. We know what he had to say.
Yeah, we know what
we all got it verbatim.
But the movement for impeachment in the public, and not just impeachment, but impeachment and removal, those numbers are going up with private hearings. When this goes public, it's going to look really bad.
Have you caught the latest, Trump's little word game? He's going to call impeachment attempted impeachment. In other words, if the House votes to impeach, he's going to call that attempted impeachment. You watch it. He's doing it. He's playing that game.
But let me just say that nonetheless, even if you do have a majority of senators who decide to vote in favor of impeachment, you could still wind up with a situation. The president will certainly try it, but he will still be able to stand up there in front of voters come 2020 and say, look, they tried to take me down and they failed to do it. I'm still here. I'm still running for
re-election. You can try that. Do you think Bill Clinton likes to have been impeached? I'm telling you, that's a mark against you.
Right.
And I'm telling you, it will be used against him in the next election. It will not be a plus.
And look, Lindsey Graham is plenty smart, and he knows this. But as I said, if you have good arguments, you don't have to use bad ones. If you're using bad ones, it's because you don't have good ones. And what Lindsey Graham has been able to do is he did get John Thune to sign the condemnation of the process. That's maybe an easier vote, and it's a way of getting people to commit early. In fact, exactly the people you are most worried with.
Well, you know what? There is a process. It's called impeachment. You call the roll. You put articles of impeachment or one article of impeachment before the House, and they vote. It's a privilege motion. And you have the vote, and you get a majority vote, and the president's impeached forever. Forever in the history books, he is impeached. A little asterisk, impeached. Republicans were prepared yesterday to do anything it took to put on a grand performance, according to a Fox News report. A source said some members asked to be arrested by the Capitol Police, citing the optics of being marched off out of the skiff in handcuffs in front of throngs of reporters and news cameras. What are their names, Jason? They want to be civil rights fighters, these guys.
This is like the most offensive imagery
By the way,
possible.
have you ever seen a more... I'm sorry, people can't help what they look like, but they were so dull looking and so passionless.
Well, they're passionless because they know they don't have a real argument, because they know that this is ridiculous. They know this is a show. And here's the thing. What are you actually being arrested for? It's an insult to any actual activist. It's an insult to the Democrats who did the sit-in about 2 years ago.
These guys, they look like they're going out for maybe lunch.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's just, the young Republican convention sort of marching to their latest meeting with the chicken dinners. But here's the issue. Even if you had gotten arrested, even that imagery, it's not changing how the public feels about this. It's not like you're throwing yourself on the sword.
By the way, that's your party there, David. And I'm telling you, we always say around here, Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. They look like they were told to line up like in a Catholic school recess, 2 by 2, no talking. I mean, look at that group.
But what also happened there was that some of the hotheads took their phones with them, and they thought they were some of the hotheads who were also
the pictures.
The lunkheads said, I'm taking my phone in with me because I'm going to make a point. And only after they were in did they realize, wait a minute, that's really bad. And so you saw this hilarious thing where people were tweeting and taking pictures, and then 2 hours later saying, actually, that was my staff. I signaled the tweet by semaphore in a secure way, and my staffer outside the room did the tweet for me. That was obviously
by semaphore, they're on a destroyer.
That was obviously untrue.
Okay.
But as Jason said, there are some realities here. This is a morale-building exercise. This is all going to be fully public very, very soon, and then all of this will be forgotten. We'll be on to the next.
We're going to get to that in the rest of the show, which is how the Democrats can hold hearings where you actually have a smart, counsel that actually keeps the focus for a half an hour or two, or even 2 hours, instead of everybody doing their 5-minute pop-ups. Joe Colbert, thank you for having us on. Thank you. Jason Johnson, I always have you, and David Frum, my Republican friend.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.